Come vape with me. It's my birthday. It's my anniversary. I haven't smoked for 4 years. When I was a smoker, this was my earthly possessions to do with smoking. I had a tin in which I stored pouches, and I did smoke Cutter's Choice, and I ended up also smoking, I think it's called Indian Chief or American Spirit or something like that, natural tobacco. But I used to keep things in my tin. That's all I had. Pouches of tobacco, a rolling machine, and papers. So that was my earthly possessions when I was a smoker. But here around me, which you can't see, I have dug out my bag in which I've kept things since I started vaping. Well, I wish you could see the stuff on this table. And I don't know where to start, excepting to tell you that we had a big family convergence on the Isle of Wight in 2009. That was my first electronic cigarette. It was the most foul and evil thing. It was like a little white cigarette, and at the end you had a cartridge. You had two things, a little sort of tube in which you dropped your e-liquid, 5 drops max, on some wadding that looked like kitchen towel, washing up cloth, and the other bit was your atomizer. So then you screwed the two together, you screwed that together, and you got about 5 or 10 vapes, which actually gave me a headache right in the middle of my head. And I thought, this is too ghastly for words. I'm going to go on smoking for the rest of my life. So I dumped that. In 2011, I bought a little black battery and cartomizers, because that's what everybody used, cartomizers. And I've got a load here. These are still the original cartomizers because I don't use them anymore, nicely packed. And I've got loads of videos on how you could wash these. I had the turkey baster method for cleaning out e-liquid from inside if you wanted to change flavors, and swinging them around in little bags to get rid of the water, and all sorts of little tricks then on cartomizers. And so there was a long time of cartomizers, and all sorts of cigarette looking e-cigarettes came out. Some of them were dreadful, and actually I still don't like these to this day because they look like cigarettes. And I thought if I was going to switch to vaping, I didn't want it to look like a cigarette. So my first battery was from Jack Vapor with cartomizers, and praise the Lord, it was a good device. And within a week I had come off smoking and I changed to vaping. Well, then my adventures began, because in cartomizers there was all sorts of stuff, and how to look after them and how to clean them. Some old videos, you cringe with our ignorance on stuff like washing and boiling and the dangers of e-liquid and all sorts of things. And now, of course, we've come to understand because we've been vaping for such a long time. So cartomizers came in all sorts of sizes, shapes and sizes. Eventually, because they all had a funny little squeegee rubber thing on the end, you could get coloured bungs or you could get drip tips. And so collecting drip tips was wonderful, exciting. I've got loads of different drip tips. There's a drip tip on a tank, which only came later, but you could put drip tips on cartomizers and it made them look more sophisticated and more interesting. All on that sort of battery, cigarette look-alike battery. I then did a broadcast in America, and they sent me, because I asked, they said, what do you want? And I'd seen this on the internet. It was called a switchback. So they sent me the switchback. I've still got it. it's still charged, and actually I've just taken off the atomizer, and I can't find it here because there's so much junk here. But this is a very long one, I'll tell you about that later. But your cartomizer fitted on the end with your drip tip or things like that, and then you could put another one on the other side if you wanted to, so you could have one flavor there and one flavor there. It was a sort of trendy thing, so you could have two, and you had a little switch which you switched from one side to the other. This was a big battery. It was 900 milliamp hours, and I would actually still use that because it's small and it fits in my hand, but it doesn't take anything under 2 ohms to vape it. So I don't know where the hell that Carter went, because I was going to show you stuff. Anyway, so some brilliant person got a new idea with a tank around a Carto. So that's just a Carto. It's got holes punched in it. I used to punch my own holes. I think the one in here is actually a bought pre-punched one. And the cartomizer goes inside the tank. And it's called, there we are, like that. They were a devil to get back in. Sometimes they were very tight. And I can't remember how we filled them. I know often it just dumped its stuff in my lap. I'll put that to one side now. So that was a dual coil tank. And that was the Carto to go inside dual coil tanks. So tanks were born. Well, I loved that dual coil tank, and in fact I would have liked to have vaped it on this, excepting on the dual coil. If it was under 2 ohms, I couldn't use it on this device, so my switchback didn't last very long. Anyway, it was fun at the time. And then manufacturers tried new things. They tried to make cheap devices that any smoker would buy in a sort of box, and there's your battery and some cartomizers and a charger that you could charge in on your computer. All sorts of things came out, like accessories for vaping. Very nice stuff too, like this in a lovely cigarette size, beautiful box, and there's your battery and your cartos. And this was a new thing then, because it was able to be charged on a wall plug or your computer. And I remember doing a review for this. It's my rock icon, which I've kept. It's in perfect condition. But that also came in a lovely box. It had excellent charging, safe charging stuff. A nice box. There's all your 2 batteries this time, and also the ability to charge on your battery, on your computer. I've even got some cartomizers there. Somebody wanted to buy my rock icon the other day, or a while back. Somebody from America. I don't know why, because the equipment nowadays is more sophisticated and better. But it did occur to me that we should have a vaping museum, because I've got so much stuff that should be in a museum. So from this kind of battery, we went on to egos and tanks, and then vaping became, for me, for new people coming off smoking, it became more satisfactory. This was a device, and I still use it occasionally, that came from Mixigs. Now the Mixig battery, although it looks like a sort of cigarette, was really good, and it had a tank on the end rather than a cartomizer, and that worked very well. However, Mixigs, of course, have got great big sophisticated things now, and I like the way it's going. It's really exciting. I sort of feel I need to streamline all the old junk here, because I've got boxes of batteries, of old dual coils. I've got boxes of, repairs and these things and tweezers and wire and oh God, it's just eternal. I've got some lovely stuff too. This was a box that one of my devices came in. It's a beautiful device and I still use it if I'm going to be really posh. But the box is so interesting because it just flips over and it becomes another thing altogether. Very classy box if you're going out and you want to have fun. So I've had fun with all this stuff. That was a favorite thing for a time. That was for dripping. I think this came from Totally Wicked. And I did drip, but it's a palm. I couldn't be bothered to do that. Getting your e-liquid drip, 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 and having a wonderful inhalation for several hits, and then you got to do it all over again. And basically, I'm really lazy. I'm not going to build my own coils. I'm not going to do all that stuff. I'm just going to buy it. So everything I need is all here. It's just the mood never takes over for me to repair or build anything myself. I simply order stuff on the internet in packs of 5, and of course I stick to my same old tank. I was wondering if I shouldn't try this, but seeing I can't remember how we filled it, and I know it ended up a lot on my lap, I think maybe I'll just leave this for my museum. But you can see how pretty it is and how glam it was, and that was all the exciting part of being a vapor and not a smoker. As a vapor, you collect all this wondrous stuff, and there are other people out there with stuff that really should be in a museum. It should be. So I'm wondering who's going to start a vaping museum, because I think it would be absolutely fascinating, and I've got lots of stuff to donate. So thanks for vaping with me. See you again.